Anyone who knows me knows I am not a fan of the George W. Bush administration or the so-called Republican Party establishment that preceded Donald Trump's hostile takeover of the GOP. And yet, in 2016, a group of Bush administration alumni and Republican foreign policy establishment heavy hitters came together and issued this open letter, publicly stating that they would not vote for their party's nominee, Donald J. Trump, in the upcoming election. These officials warned that a Trump presidency would, quote, put at risk our country's national security and well-being. They wrote that then-candidate Trump, quote, would be the most reckless president in American history. And what we've learned in recent days, in particular, makes that letter of theirs, that warning of theirs, look particularly prescient, prophetic even. This week, Donald Trump became the first ex-president in U.S. history to be indicted on federal criminal charges. In a stunning indictment unsealed on Friday, the Justice Department charged Trump with 37 felony counts stemming from their investigation into the hundreds of classified documents recovered at his Mar-a-Lago resort. Those charges include 31 counts of violating the Espionage Act through willful retention of classified records. Trump also faces 6 other counts for his alleged efforts to impede the investigation. And for the first time, we got a look at just how sensitive some of these classified documents retained by Trump were. According to the indictment, they included, quote, information regarding defense and weapons capabilities of both the United States and foreign countries, United States nuclear programs, potential vulnerabilities of the United States and its allies to military attack, and plans for possible retaliation in response to a foreign attack. That's the kind of stuff that foreign intel agencies would, I am assuming, literally kill to get their hands on. And for months, that highly sensitive information was just laying around the ex-president's Florida resort home/wedding venue in all kinds of bizarre places. Here you can see boxes of documents stored in a Mar-a-Lago ballroom, whereas the indictment notes events and gatherings often took place. Boxes were even crammed into a bathroom at the resort's lake club. The boxes were then moved to a storage room on the property, where they were later discovered by Trump aide and named co-conspirator Walt Nauta to have spilled on the floor. Here you can see a document with redactions clearly visible. The indictment states that the hallway leading to that storage room, quote, could be reached from multiple outside entrances, including one accessible from the Mar-a-Lago club pool patio through a doorway that was often kept open. Wow. How convenient. You could have a day at the pool, dry yourself off, and then take a quick stroll down the hallway to indulge in some light reading of our nation's most sensitive secrets. Now, the truth is we didn't need a 49-page indictment to know how vulnerable Mar-a-Lago is. Remember the Ukrainian woman who infiltrated the resort multiple times after posing as a fake heiress? Or the Chinese businesswoman who was convicted of unlawfully entering Mar-a-Lago while carrying a bag full of electronics? And those are just 2 of the cases we know about. We can't forget all the dozens and dozens of temporary foreign workers that Trump hires to, yes, among other things, clean toilets and bathrooms. Maybe like this one. Hell, my kid's bedroom is more secure than Mar-a-Lago. And again, while this week's indictment makes the criminal case against Trump, it was already quite clear that the ex-president couldn't be trusted with classified information. Remember how Kid Rock, yes, Kid Rock, told us just last year that in 2017, during an Oval Office meeting, Trump showed him, Kid Rock, stuff about North Korea that he probably shouldn't have been shown. So is it any wonder that with that kind of information already out there, on top of the new information laid out clearly in the indictment, which I should note includes a transcript of an audio recording where Trump admits he knew the documents in his possession were classified, that even some of the ex-president's once fiercest defenders are now flipping the script? Here's Trump's former Attorney General, Bill Barr, speaking just this morning.
But I do think that even half what Andy McCarthy said, which is if even half of it is true, then he's toast. I mean, it's a very detailed indictment, and it's very, very damning. And this idea of presenting Trump as a victim here, a victim of a witch hunt, is ridiculous.
But I'm sure Trump will be screaming witch hunt on Tuesday night. Today we learned that he plans to give public remarks after he surrenders to authorities during the day at a courthouse in Miami. If convicted on everything, Trump could face up to 100 years in prison. But that's up to a Florida jury of his peers and up to a Florida judge Aileen Cannon, who rather conveniently he appointed and who has already ruled in his favour during the early stages of this investigation, a ruling, I should note, that was later overturned by a higher court. Now, we are months or perhaps years away from a possible verdict in this case, but what's already clear to me, as someone who is not a lawyer, but is a US citizen, a voter, is that this man should not be running for high office again. He should never be allowed near classified intelligence ever again. Forget President of the United States, forget Commander-in-Chief of the United States military. Donald Trump is unfair. Donald Trump is just unfit to be the treasurer of your local Rotary Club. He is a real and present danger to our nation's secrets, our nation's security, our nation's democracy, whether he is inside or outside of a prison cell.